Today, tensions in the Middle East surged as Israel launched actions against Iran at dawn. Simultaneous explosions rocked multiple cities across Iran, Syria, and Iraq, intensifying the night's events. Particularly, the explosions in Iran escalated regional tension to unprecedented levels. Reports emerged of simultaneous explosions and potential missile strikes hitting at least 8 cities in Iran. Allegedly, Israel responded with missile strikes in retaliation against Iran. Both Iranian state media and semi-official sources, along with the Revolutionary Guards, confirmed explosions in various Iranian cities. According to a senior U.S. official speaking to ABC News, Israel launched retaliatory missiles early Friday morning local time. Initial reports indicated explosions occurring in 8 Iranian cities, including Tehran, Fordow, Arak, Natanz, Kar Island, Bushehr, Bandar Abbas, and Isfahan. The state-run Fars news agency reported an explosion heard at an airport in Isfahan, though the cause remains unknown. Isfahan province hosts several Iranian nuclear facilities, including Natanz, a pivotal site in Iran's uranium enrichment efforts. Flights to Ton, Isfahan, and Shiraz were halted following reports of an explosion in Ghajawaristan city. According to Iranian state media, tonight's Israeli Air Force airstrike appears to have targeted the 8th Tactical Air Base of the Iranian Air Force within Isfahan International Airport, housing multiple squadrons of F-14 Tomcat fighter jets. Isfahan was among the launch sites utilized in the attack. Footage circulating on social media depicts anti-aircraft fire striking the central Iranian city of Isfahan, which hosts one of Iran's nuclear facilities. IRNA reported that defenses engaged in fire in various provinces, with no specific details on the cause of activation provided, although residents in the vicinity reported hearing the sounds. Ghajawaristan city lies close to Isfahan airports and the Army Air Force Shakari base northwest of Isfahan. Flight tracking service Flight Radar 24 displayed numerous flights rerouted into Iranian airspace early Friday, with Iranian-bound flights altering their courses and several Emirati flights affected. Israeli authorities alerted the Biden administration prior to the attack. Following the Israeli airstrike, flights were redirected and numerous Iranian airports shuttered. Additional unconfirmed explosions were alleged in Iraq and Syria. Iranian state news indicated the activation of the country's air defense systems across multiple provinces. Shortly after news of the attack surfaced, Florida Senator Marco Rubio took to Twitter to highlight Israel's capability to launch strikes on Iranian targets from aircraft flying over Syrian and Iraqi airspace, bypassing entry into Iranian territory. Despite the U.S. military's pivotal role in thwarting Iran's attacks, President Biden emphasized to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu the importance of cautious and strategic action. Biden urged Netanyahu to pursue defensive measures and cautioned against expecting U.S. participation in any Israeli counteroffensive. Despite Biden's warnings, Netanyahu asserted Israel's autonomy in determining its response to Iran's attack. Additionally, Syrian reports indicated airstrikes targeting positions of the Syrian army in southern Syrian regions of As-Suwayda and Daraa. ABC News reported that the Israeli missile strike hit an Iranian site early Friday morning, coinciding with local reports of explosions in Isfahan, central Iran. Reports from Syrian media indicate that Israeli warplanes targeted Alala Airport in the As-Suwayda governorate of southern Syria, as well as the Baghdad region and the Babylon government in Iran. Additionally, Iran's semi-official Fars news agency reported an explosion heard in Ghajawaristan, located east of Isfahan, near Isfahan International Airport. Fars underscored that the cause of the explosion remains unidentified. Israeli officials had announced their intention to launch an attack within the next 24 to 48 hours, as reported by the local news website Asua 24. The airstrikes reportedly focused on Syrian army radar installations situated between Qada and Isfahan in the southern Syrian province of Daraa. Residents of Erbil and Mosul in Iraq also reported hearing the sounds of warplanes during the early hours of Friday morning. Israeli media disclosed that several senior Israeli officials convened at the Hakiria military headquarters in Tel Aviv on Friday morning. These events unfolded subsequent to Israel's vow to retaliate against an Iranian drone and missile assault on Saturday night. The Iranian strike was prompted by an Israeli airstrike targeting a structure adjacent to the Iranian embassy in Damascus, purportedly resulting in the death of Mohammad Reza Jayedi, a senior Revolutionary Guards commander overseeing Iran's operations in Syria and Lebanon. Nevertheless, experts anticipate that Tehran will encounter minimal difficulty in striking targets within Iran. Should Iran choose to retaliate directly against Israel's unprecedented drone and missile attacks on Saturday night, concerns arise regarding its aging air force and indigenous air defense systems, largely comprised of outdated Russian models. Brigadier General Zvika Haimovich, former head of the Israeli Air Force, IAF Air Defense, acknowledges Iran's strength in tactical ballistic missiles and unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. However, he emphasizes that air defense poses a separate challenge, primarily relying on Russian S-200 and S-300 anti-aircraft missile systems, or domestically produced equivalents like the Bavar 373, Kad Rod Sayad, and Talash, alongside older American and S-300 systems. Some of these systems trace back to the era of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi in the 1970s. Haimovich trusts in the expertise of the Israeli Air Force and coalition air forces to effectively navigate this environment. Nevertheless, Siddharth Kaushal, a research fellow at the Royal United Strategic Institute in London, suggests that Israel's real challenge may lie not in evading Iranian surface-to-air missiles, but in successfully targeting military bases in western and southern Iran. Israeli aircraft, such as the stealthy F-35 jets capable of circumventing Iran's air defense networks, often carry smaller munitions. However, larger munitions may be necessary for striking deeply buried targets, potentially requiring external carriage on aircraft like the F-16, making them more susceptible to radar detection. To mitigate risks, pilots may opt to launch these munitions from a greater distance for safety reasons. The Iranian air defense network currently poses a challenge for these aircraft, though it heightens the risk of casualties and theoretically enhances Iran's capability to intercept some of the incoming munitions. The response from Iran following this morning's events remains uncertain. Iranian officials have issued stern warnings in recent days, asserting that any Israeli attack on Iran would be met with a swift and forceful retaliation. As Israel persists in its plans to retaliate against Iran, a senior Iranian official cautioned that any strike on Iran's nuclear facilities would prompt the country to initiate nuclear weapons production. Iran has threatened to employ previously unused weapons in the event of an Israeli attack and has expressed a desire to avoid further escalation unless provoked by Israel. Meanwhile, Western nations have urged restraint in Israel. Bu al-Fazl Amoueh of Iran's Parliamentary National Security Committee stated that Iran is prepared to deliver a severe response to even the slightest provocation. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian also cautioned that Iran would respond with maximum force if Israel initiated hostilities. The instability in the region immediately impacted global oil markets, with Brent crude oil prices soaring above $90 per barrel. As reports of the Israeli attack surfaced, the recent surge in tensions across the Middle East, characterized by explosions in Iran, Syria, and Iraq, allegedly linked to Israeli missile strikes, carries profound geopolitical and geostrategic implications for the region and beyond. The repercussions of these developments on Israel, Iran, the United States, and the broader Middle East remain uncertain. Israeli strikes targeting Iranian assets represent a significant escalation in efforts to diminish Iran's influence and military capabilities, particularly its nuclear and military assets. These attacks present substantial military challenges for Iran, potentially undermining strategic capabilities if key facilities or equipment suffer damage. Politically, they place internal and external pressure on the Iranian government. Domestically, leadership must navigate public perception of its authority, susceptible to erosion in the face of visible external assaults. Internationally, Iran may feel compelled to retaliate or escalate military involvement in the region to reaffirm its status as a regional power, potentially intensifying conflict. The United States faces a nuanced position. As an ally of Israel and generally supportive of its right to self-defense, it must delicately balance broader strategic interests in the region. These interests encompass de-escalating tensions with Iran while safeguarding American forces and interests. The response from the Biden administration, advocating for caution and strategic negotiation, underscores its apprehension regarding the potential for a wider conflict that could exacerbate regional instability and draw the United States into further military entanglements. These developments are poised to significantly challenge regional dynamics, potentially escalating conflict and heightening destabilization in other Middle Eastern nations, such as Iraq and Syria, experiencing new outbreaks of unrest. Arab states, particularly those within the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, which have historically navigated intricate relations with Iran while maintaining cautious engagement with Israel, may find themselves confronted with complex diplomatic dilemmas. Israel is expected to maintain a heightened state of vigilance against potential retaliatory strikes from Iran or its proxy forces. Meanwhile, Iran faces the imperative to reassess its military stance and defensive capabilities, particularly concerning its nuclear and critical infrastructure. In the event Iran perceives a threat to its survival or strategic interests, there's a risk of acceleration in its nuclear program, further escalating tensions and potentially triggering international sanctions or actions. The reactions of global powers like Russia and China to these developments could also significantly shape the trajectory of the conflict. The strategic implications of the recent attacks are profound. Thank you for your attention.